folks out there. Welcome to the show. It is Discord Tuesday, and we are still talking about the Chosen One. Yeah, of course. Pretty boring. We've all kind of agreed with that. But just like Monster Monday yesterday, we're going to try to find all the really cool things we can pull out of the idea of the coming of, the birth of, the prophecy of the Chosen One. So today, Discord Tuesday is kind of a large grab bag, but in general, I like to think of it as a way for us to discuss maybe some mechanical features that we can use, or maybe even steal from some other elements, and also maybe just talk about things in general, maybe some problems that can come up that for those of you that want to use the idea of the chosen one in your game world, or even if one of your players wants to become this individual, how to solve some of those problems and some of the pitfalls that come along. So yeah, we now for those who don't know, this show is simulcast on Twitch and YouTube, and the audio gets pushed out to Discord over at Fantasy Grounds College. And if you really want to find us and participate, and maybe even participate textually, you can do so, of course, in the chat, and you can do so over on in the boiler room way down at the bottom over at Fantasy Grounds College. That's where all the cool kids hang out. Just below all the collegiates and classmates hanging out above, learning the virtual tabletop Fantasy Grounds itself. All right, so let's continue on with what we were talking about yesterday, and a little bit of what Mr. Spinzar, Mr. likes to spin the subject towards a particular goal. We talked about yesterday possibly having a faction or number of factions and groups that are trying to guide the populace, or at least discover where this chosen one is coming from, or where they are, or how they fit into the world. And I think it would be pretty easy for us on a mechanical level to reskin or reflavor something like, oh, I don't know, like honor or renown, or some form of maybe social social measurement, social metric, for those who believe in the power of, or the prophecy of, or the coming of the chosen one. I suppose you could also, yeah, I suppose you could also add in, maybe if this chosen one is predicted to arrive but has not arrived yet, that there may be certain tasks or locations or some kind of metric to have the chosen one's arrival happen due to the player character's actions. Maybe they travel to different places, they fulfill um, certain prophetic prophetic encounters and things, maybe traveling to certain locations, or a number of individuals have gathered together, or certain acts have taken place, the burning of, the destruction of, the construction of, the bringing the MacGuffin to a particular location at a particular date and time, kind of thing. And so maybe there's some kind of a measuring metric, 5 to 10 tasks or duties or tests that must be completed, either to bring about the chosen one, or for one or more of them to be considered that as well. Mr. Spenzar talks about, like I said, so I've narrowed the easiest kinds of chosen ones to the following. Destiny's chosen, someone who's born into the role of chosen, which, yeah, I gotta say that's probably the most common one. Hey, this person is born to be the chosen one. And mind you, we're being extremely general when it comes to what the chosen one is supposed to do. We have chosen ones in our own world, and their only purpose is to be born, and then everyone follows them for no particular reason. There are those that might have great power from the gods, a divine power of the chosen one. There may be a collection of individuals who have a certain bloodline, and if certain bloodlines are mixed or they are expected to come about, a certain child might be very powerful in their psychic powers or magic or something, and then there may also be a scientific reason as well. That would be more science or political, socioeconomic. For example, the first children born after we land on Mars might be considered like a royalty of sorts, just simply because um, of their rare but singular births. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, so everyone's like, yeah. I mean, Anakin was the chosen one. All right, Mr. Spencer goes on to say, and he says, "Hey, we all know how that ended." Yeah, for good or bad. Yeah, I've seen the movie. Mr. Spencer goes on to say, you've got Destiny's Chosen, someone who's born into the role, the path of the chosen, someone who's trained, prepared, and conditioned for the role of chosen, which again, that may be like a certain set of tasks may have been predicted, someone who's traveled four corners of the earth, or um, past some kind of very vague, suffered the path of the four elements or something like that. And sure, the individuals completed these tasks or gone through the pain or the crucible of something might be the role. And then Mr. Spencer ends it with the chosen advisor, someone or something that acts as or has acted as a guide and tutor to a person that grooms them for the role of chosen. We can go into the Star Wars theme. We can kind of think of Obi-Wan Kenobi in that very first New Hope movie, kind of acting in that role. Gandalf would kind of be that individual in terms of picking Frodo. Frodo being the proverbial everyman and no man at the same time, and then saying, "No, you will be the one that's going to help us," kind of thing. Um, Mrs. Spencer says, "Shout out to the Dalai Lama for representing the just being born chosen one." Yes, very much so. And then some people embrace it. Others are like, "Hell no, I'm not doing this." Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Scott Poe says, Anakin sure balanced the force. Spencer says he was. People just didn't really read the prophecy. Yeah, and I know the whole thing, like, it's like, like most stories, it's like, okay, uh, chosen one does the good thing at the end, but how long does it last? 5 years, 20 years? If it goes away, was it useless in the first place or whatever, whatever. Mm, 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 mm. Tesla Ranger, but I love it. Tesla Ranger says, legend has it that the sword of power can only be wielded by a man named Davy, who is actually 45 years old, has gotten into a car crash twice, owns a donkey, and was accidentally chosen by the god of good decisions. There is no prophecy or guarantee that any of this will actually ever happen, much less that if it does, he will happen to know about the sword. Yeah, there's like the so random things that would never actually link together that the individual does the thing. And Omen goes on to say the chosen advisor reminds me of John the Baptist from the Bible. Yeah, and of course, because this is beginning of the third season, we didn't get a chance to put this out in December. Pulling pulling on those biblical threads there, very generally, because we've seen this kind of thing done in media, whether books or movies or television shows, comic books, graphic novels, plenty of times. Um, yes, Scott Poe says the prophecy in Willow when the village sorcerer reads the bones. Willow talking about the child. Rolls then whispers, and the bones telling me nothing. What do you want? And then stands, the bones have spoken. Isn't that the oracle thing, right? It's like the, the the oracle that lies about the thing that's supposed to happen because the person wants to know that it happens. So then they leave it, and then it becomes true. Um, in the who brought up Dune? I want to make sure I do this. Oh, anyway, one of you guys brought up the idea of Dune. Dune was very much about prophecies and such, and the one of the main characters, Maldeeb, it was a if I can make simplify this, the family had to run, and the mom and son had to lie, claiming that they were part of the Fremen that lived out in the desert of Doom, and lied and basically said, "Yeah, yeah, my son's the the coming whatever, the person that fulfills the prophecy. Yeah, whatever." And of course, in her head, she's like, "Yeah, it's a complete lie, but we're going to just manipulate these people so we can live." And then come to find out that he actually fell into that role. So yeah, that's definitely a thing. Omen brings up, well, I'd say that Cain slaying Abel was quite iconic as the first murder. Not all the chosen ones are there to bring about peace and prosperity. Of course, yesterday we talked about the Antichrist and Cain slaying Abel. There may be, hey, George Jarvis, there may be the idea that someone brings about an event that heralds things happening. So it might not just be the chosen one, but there may be the individual who does the thing that tells everybody else that the thing is going to happen. Yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Oh man. Yeah. There's also I'm trying to mention. There's also the idea that there's a timer. So instead of, like, if we want to make this a mechanical effect, there may be a number of things that. Oh, you're so wrong, Omen. Oh, Kane rocked. You're so bad. Oh, I love it. Uh, there is the idea the that a number of events may happen, and there could be like a countdown to Armageddon, right? And the PCs may be running around either trying to cause and or prevent a number of things happening so that the chosen one is or isn't does not come about, right? So an example would be like, there's the prophecy of I don't know, the seven deaths or something, and there are like seven great nobles that will die one by one through pseudo mysterious means, and maybe the PCs are running around the countryside trying to make sure that the seven nobles don't die, or maybe they are destined to make it come about. And when the seven nobles die before the seventh setting sun or something like that, then the chosen one will arrive. And so maybe the player characters are like assassins from Assassin's Creed or something, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna make this happen now," and that kind of thing. So you could have a mechanical metric of, we've accomplished three of the seven tasks, and when we get to that seventh one, the thing will happen, or the thing will come about, or the individual will be revealed to us, or something. Joseph Keenan uh, says there is no chosen one, only Zuul, when you have people taking advantage of the masses. Um, yeah, we talked, and we're going to talk about now, I guess, the idea of how many people, I mean, in our own lifetime, we have people who are willing to, do pretty heinous things in the name of the individual that they've chosen to be the chosen one, or to embody the idea of the chosen one. Um, there could be some quite strange or pretty brutalistic, mechanical effects of the people who are following one or more of the chosen ones. An example would be that your average individual following, the words of their own particular chosen one, maybe they all have a supernatural ability to resist pain and exhaustion, and place themselves in front of danger, i.e., your average, single hit point individual becomes like, a 30 hit point berserker, simply because of their devotion to a chosen one. And it would be a good excuse to place enhanced individuals in your world based on their devotion to the one or more of the true or false chosen ones that exist in the world in the first place. Um, yeah. Mr. Spence, you're so hilarious. Um, yeah. Mr. Spence goes on to say, so the chosen road, a path that remains open or transversable for a limited window, making it so the destined event must occur within a specific window, which would be fun if you revealed the prophecy and pieces to the party. You know that um the the chosen road idea is one. Well, no, I'm thinking of the Hercules story, but the Hercules story doesn't quite fit. It may be the fulfilling of certain tasks, the elimination of certain enemies, kind of thing where the prophecy might be you are the chosen one if you are able to complete the 10 tasks of the divine throne or something of that nature, in which it's not necessarily a matter of a single individual being born, but a number of people trying to take up or piece together and follow the path so that they are the ones that's chosen to do the thing, right? At the end, there's the proverbial sword and stone that you can wield, but you can only do it if you survive so many tasks or something. And that can very easily combine with the chosen advisor, right? The chosen advisor comes to town. Everyone is like, every family member is like kind of like pick their firstborn or something to be picked to go through this. The 2 dozen kids that are going to follow the chosen advisor, whose purpose is to lead, the chosen kids down the path to become the thing. I suppose the opening scene in the movie 300 kind of reveals that with the the picking of the born children, the ones who don't fit thrown over the cliff to just rot and die, and then the ones that are picked become members of the 300, i.e. they are the chosen one to the 300, although the process is a little brutal and pretty nasty, but yeah. uh, uh, Tesla Ranger puts in Trope Talk, Chosen Ones. It puts the YouTube link posted exactly 2 years and 2 days ago. Coincidence? I think not. Maybe we were chosen to pick the Chosen One video in YouTube for that particular reason. Fulfilling the prophecy. Yeah. Oh man. Zev says one Star Wars game said sometimes swirling force is just swirling force around people. It gets old men like me excited, going, "Ooh, Destiny." Yeah, well, there's a little bit of that. Of course, a chosen advisor must have the ability to say things that are so vague that you can kind of piece together the thing to make the thing happen. Yes, the force is. It surrounds and binds us. It is a. I'm not going to exactly tell you what your powers are. You're gonna have to figure it out for yourself. Yes. Oh man. Yeah. Joseph Keenan says when the stars are right. Yeah, maybe when the stars align or a particular events happen in a particular order. I mentioned before, like the three storms or the stars come about, or what is it? Game of Thrones had the red comet that flew across the sky to predict the coming of the dragons and magic and things like that. Oh, of course, many people were just like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, Mr. Spinzar's like, Grumsh. Yeah, with the goblinoids. Yeah, put out an eye and kill that guy. Yeah, pretty simple, pretty simple um, prophecy on that one. Yeah, put out an eye and kill that guy. Kung Pao, Fist of Fury. All right, Dreadcat Bongers. Okay, before I hit the shower, laughed at the Chosen One, thinking Kung Pao, Fist of Fury falls on the same level as Life of Brian. Yeah, it sure is. I mean, come on now. The, the Chosen One, much like The Golden Child and other movies like that, intellectual properties that do that. Sometimes it's a little bit ridiculous, and so you got to make fun of it. Um, Omen says the chosen road can also be a meditative thing. I think like maybe they spend most of their early lives in some sparse monastery. The idea of training or secluding the chosen one as well is a thing. Um, much like much like today, when we see people who have particular physical attributes or have done things in their lives that kind of represent what we think the chosen one's experiences and skill sets would be. Um, I I would say, dare to say the same thing about the chosen ones that are cloistered away in the monastery or the temple or um, the mountain hiding place or something like that. The wandering monk idea of the person that's traveled to the seven kingdoms to do a thing, and then everyone's like, "Oh, they've been around the world. I see that they're tatted up. They've picked up something." So yeah, each place that they go. Yeah, I see a jokey that you're the dread cat bonkers, which I suppose would be the title of my cats sitting right next to me. Now, I think other mechanical metrics in terms of, and this is going to go into a little bit of world building Wednesday. One of the things that comes about with the chosen are we've seen many times are things happening in the world that people link together to say, yes, this is the thing that's bringing about the chosen one. Today, and many times when people predict like apocalyptic events, they talk about the downfall of mankind and war and the weapons of destruction. But in ancient times, there's celestial events when it comes to the stars and moons aligning, falling stars. Hell, it could be science fiction with solar flares or things like that. Alien species may have their own prophecies from their own cultures mixing in with a more intergalactic or interstellar community, and that kind of thing. And so the chosen one's appearance or prediction may bring about things in the world, much like um, uh, raining frogs, locusts, the death of harvests, people bleeding out of their eye sockets. I don't know. Um, a, 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 a total eclipse of the sun, those kind of things. And so you could mix in pseudo mystical, arcane elements into your world that normally aren't there. Maybe people become mutated, the sky and the world become strange, maybe plants become animated and become man eating. Um, uh, Animals that are normally docile become dire versions of themselves. The, the normally docile, I don't know, dire cows start standing up on their hind legs and beating the hell out of out of the harvesters or things like that. So yeah, you could have something where it normally the strange and arcane and um, extraordinary things may not be happening in the world, but the prophecy says that in 1,001 days these things will happen, and so boom, these things start coming about. People start going mad. They start turning. They start gaining extraordinary powers and things. So, yeah. Going back into the chat, uh, let's see. Scott Post says guys like Xeron Fist, chosen to guard a magic city or whatever, both an honor and a massive burden. Yeah, being the chosen one doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good thing. We talked about that a little bit actually at the end of the show, where you're like, the prophecy is like, yeah, you have to complete the 35 tasks. Every single one of those 35 tasks will be very painful and scar you for life. And you're like, hell no, I'm not doing that. I don't care that I was born to be the chosen one. Let somebody else do it. Um, man. Omen's like a chaotic evil Omen instead of a neutral evil me. Yeah, you know, there's also there is the idea of the chosen one picking somebody else to do the thing because they don't want to do it themselves, or the chosen one knows that everyone thinks that they're the person, and they're just like, I am not doing this. Um, many people who are completely aware of their place or their importance, um, many times try to, you know, they refuse to do the thing because of the pain, the sacrifice that they have to go through, the separation from society that happens when people place them on pedestals, which happens very much with uh, the people we. There are people we put on pedestals that oftentimes they don't even want to be there. You're just like, the young person who saved someone's life just because they thought it was the right thing to do, and then all of a sudden they're on the interview circuit, and you could see how uncomfortable they are because they're like, someone was in a car accident and someone else needed to save their life. I didn't really want to be on TV in the first place, but okay, whatever, you know. Oh man. Yeah, Omen brings up. Yeah, I remember when Jesus wept in the garden. Oh, I don't want to go too biblical because I know very little to negative information about biblical events, but the much of the story of Jesus, from what I understand, has dealt with the idea of, you know I'm supposed to do this thing, but I really don't want to. And I got to get the courage up to do the thing, you know? And being surrounded by a bunch of people who are like, yeah, you got to do the thing. And other people are like, you don't really have to do the thing if you don't want to. And that's where I think where the real drama comes from. Um, yeah, Omen says, yeah, I remember Jesus begging God to find someone else to do it. And that's kind of what I remember. And what a great we in the tabletop role playing community are brilliant, sometimes too brilliant for our own good, and we tend to like to get to the very end of the thing, right? The chosen one will be kidding, so silly. The chosen one will do the thing, so then the chosen one will be the thing, right? But the journey and to get there, the not just the physical journey of defeating the monster or completing the task or asking the Sphinx, to solve a riddle it can't solve, but the psychological pain and stress of being that chosen one for the gods. If the PCs are playing the characters and the gods are like, hey, God, by the way, you're going to have to do these things, and the PCs are like, really? Like, I got to go where and do what and leave my family behind? Like, I really don't want to do that at first level. And the gods are like, you will become a 20th level badass. Like, I don't want to. I kind of wanted to marry my, childhood sweetheart and like eat pastries from old Miss So and So. It's that kind of thing where the person is pushed or must accept their place, and the pain and the loss that comes from it, even though they know at the end, in their own head at least, something good will come about. And how many times have we seen stories where the gods, especially like the Greek and Roman gods, even Norse gods, are asking slash ordering the mortals or the demigods to do the thing, and the mortals are like, I'm not doing that. I know you're one of the gods, but here's a middle finger. I'm not doing that. So yeah, Mr. Spencer says, I believe the biblical story of Christ can be summarized as, quote, the greatest individual in any story is the one who takes on the suffering of others and chooses to grow as a person when they are mantled with suffering by others. And quite a difficult story to tell in a role-playing setting, but I think would be pretty amazing, thing to try to um, to embrace, to live through. It's not maybe it's not about defeating the bad guys. It's about taking on the problems of the world and then having to shoulder physically, like literally and emotionally, those the pain and suffering of others. And yeah, so you know, could you really do that in a role playing game? I don't know. I think not. But could you pick out bits and pieces of that? Hell yeah, very much so. And then of course, yeah. Omen says, yeah, yeah. I remember Hercules cursing his dad Zeus, and and Hera. Yep, like his 12 labors. Exactly. Um, yeah. Random horse monsters cursed their father Zeus. Man stuck his dick in everything. Yeah, he sure did. Yeah, he was a little horny toad. Yeah. um. Oh man. Uh, let's see. Someone named Roach says, story-wise, of all the actors in the, I'm going to assume, New Testament, Judas was the one who grew the most after he betrayed Jesus. He repented a bigger step than what most people in those books seemed capable of. You know, that's another thing that I think mechanically we can play with, which is, all right, let's take the classic paladin that no longer, the paladin that no longer follows their oath, or if we want to go back before fifth edition, before paladin oaths, there were like the paladin would pick a divine god, and they had to follow the tenets of that divinity, and if they didn't, they would lose their powers, right? And there are plenty of stories of people going 0 to 60. Ha 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 ha. You stole some bread to feed a homeless person. That means you're a thief. That means you broke your paladin order. You're no longer lawful good. We've seen those stories like that. But what a great thing, a great story element, and a great mechanical way to do this would be for the player characters and NPCs in the world to try to follow the razor's edge of what the gods want and what the prophecies are asking, and the two don't mix together. And who in the world is still, after the paladin breaks their oath, they still have their abilities? Or maybe there are people in power who are refusing to follow the tenets of the chosen one or the tenets of the divine and still have their powers? Or much like many stories where you have the main character who's lost their faith, and i.e. lost their abilities, but you come to find out that the purpose was for them to lose their faith in the first place, only to travel a very painful path because they needed to learn something or gain some specific talent which allows them to actually fulfill the prophecy and the divine calling in the first place. I know I ran around the corner on that one, but yeah, it is Discord Tuesday, so I'm trying to pull that out. Um, yeah, getting back to the chat. You guys and your mystic horses, uh, pounding everything into submission. But hey, that happened a hell of a lot in the stories, and a lot of characters in the especially the Greek and Roman mythology were demigods, and a lot of them didn't want to be the people that they were. I mean, hell, even Achilles' mom told him that, you know what, you could go to war, and you could go to war and die, but you'll be lauded as a hero, or you could stay here and your name would never live out through history, but you'll live a long and prosperous life. And he chose to go. So a lot of heroes that had some divine blood in them were given pretty heinous choices in their lives, which in many ways, I mean, if we think about classic Dungeons and Dragons, um, more than just the sorcerer character class, but speaking about the sorceress character class itself, could be a divine or a fated role in the world. Of course, everyone loves themselves some warlocks, right? Warlock could be the same thing, where a warlock patron could be picking and choosing people who are the chosen ones, or at least who walk a chosen path to see if they are able to accomplish a task. And maybe a ton of those people were just like, why the hell did you choose me? I didn't want to do this thing. So, and the push and pull of that, what a strange pathway for a player character to go on a journey only to then want to give up their title to someone else, right? It's not about my character getting to 20th level and being powerful. It's about my character getting to 20th level so I could finally take, the yoke of this great struggle off of my shoulders and place it on someone else. Yeah, that runs as what is Oedipus, you are the chosen one. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Heck, was Theseus and Perseus were characters that were chosen ones. Um, Man, most of the characters from the Odyssey, with Odysseus and the rest of them, chosen to do a thing or go somewhere. Oh man. Joseph Keenan brings up stigmata and other stuff come to the forefront, mostly psychosomatic because they are true believers in the chosen one. And again, like putting in those elements in the world, or even having those things come about, right? Like your why does the okay, why is it an average individual now has magical abilities, or represents a stat block of some creature? Well, because they believe it's true, right? Like you're saying, like psychosomatic conditions, if we're going to go scientific on it, um, maybe many people are able to accomplish great things because they believe they can accomplish those great things. And to the point where we know people almost have the mystical ability to do and overcome certain things. Um, the idea of resisting pain, for example, in our own world, or extreme cases of endurance, surviving fire, setting cells on fire and piercing their bodies with steel rods and things like that. Like there are people in our own world that are able to do things, dislocating their body or muscle, or suffering, um, flaying their own bodies, um, to represent their devotion to their religion. The chanting and lifting up of poisonous snakes, and that kind of thing. And whether you believe in it or not is not the point. We're using this to pull from our information and knowledge and energy fuel, mental fuel for our tabletop games. So maybe maybe there's normal human beings who are, I don't know, taming, I don't know, displacer beasts or something out in the wild. Um, sure, could a displacer beast rip their face off? Of course, but they believe it won't happen, and because of their devotion to the chosen prophecy, it doesn't happen. And which would be kind of a weird thing, because it's like a self-fulfilled prophecy. Like the displacer beasts are the agents of change, so therefore they bring the displacer beasts into town, which then makes everyone else think that they are the ones in control of the displacer beasts, and because of that, they believe they are in control of the displacer beasts, and the displacer beasts are like, oh, scratching their head with one of their tentacles off of their shoulders, like, this person isn't afraid of me. Maybe I'll follow them around. Maybe they'll give me scratchies on the back of my head, and so therefore it's a weird thing. Like, yeah, it happens because they believe it will happen, so then it happens. um so yeah, I very much so. Now there might be other things too, where there's a prediction of things like plagues or falling stars or fires or earthquakes and things of that nature. Maybe there are people who are suffering from some kind of plague or something that turns them into, I don't know, mindless, goblinoids or something like that, trolls or something. So instead of trolls being born, they come about because of the pestilence that is going, the ones who aren't chosen, the disbelievers, will become filled with, their mouths will fill with pestilence or something, and so therefore they become monsters and things that need to be defeated or something. Um, on a sci-fi level, the same thing may happen. There might be prophecies found through a dead race of people that are like, you know, when when the stars wink out in the sky, a thing may happen. And so there might be an arcane prophetic element to a very scientific kind of thing. And then those things might happen: radiation, poisoning, fluctuations in gravity, um, gamma ray bursts, things like that. I don't know, nebula being ionized or something. Yeah. Someone brought up Joseph Keenan brings up the fact that the Buddhist monks during the Vietnam War, when they publicly burned themselves in protest, yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And taking that to an arcane level, maybe they burn themselves and become, I don't know, living skeletal burning fire elementals or something because of because they're protesting the murder of children because they don't because someone the foul king doesn't want the chosen one to come about, right? Like one thing could lead to another thing, which leads to another thing, and all of these may not be part of the prophecy. They are side effects of the prophecy as each person acts and or reacts to the events that are coming about. And then maybe part of the prophecy are the three monks that become the living sun, or something like that. Scott, yeah, trolls were destined to aggravate the internet. They sure do grow there on the internet, don't they? That's kind of weird. Mr. Spencer says, chosen by rituals, a religion or cult that has a series of trials that the faithful subject themselves to, which become more dangerous and deadly, but the further down the path the faithful go, the closer they get to completing the prophecy. Most people step off the road of trials around like the seventh trial, but or something like near 60. Yeah, they're like, yeah, I'm gonna ring the bell. I'm getting out of here. I'm not going through Bud's training, right? Oh man, yeah, but very much so. And now the funny thing about like the chosen by trials thing is, okay, the person who completes the trial, it's like by the time they complete all the trials, it doesn't matter whether they were born to be the chosen one or not. The simple act of completing the trials themselves kind of makes that person the chosen one, which I'm also destroying my own theory, in which case the prophecy says that the person who completes the chosen one is the chosen one, and then the average Joe Schmo completes all the trials, which gives them the talents and the skill, and went through the crucible to become the chosen one. So again, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in and of itself, right? So yeah. Omen says, in my own setting, I thought of reimagining liches um, as undead who pretends to be messiahs to the people, even though they constantly demand ritual suicide from their um, cult members. Now, demanding things of people, ritual suicide, murders, tortures of themselves and others. I mean, that's a thing, right? How many people have had their own societies built around that kind of thing, right? Um, so, liches doing that, that's not much of a far step, since we have normal human beings who demand that of people themselves. And they're just like, oh, you want me to kill myself for your cause? Yeah, makes perfect sense to me, even though the leaders aren't doing it themselves, right? Um, we've seen that here in just bringing up the United States, we've seen that with the Branch Davidians, we've seen that with, what was it, Waco, and a number of cult-like cults that have surrounded themselves with other individuals. The Manson family. There's so many. Jonestown, yes, thank you. There's so many that have like they have these predictions no one else understands. We are the only ones that understand. There's usually at least one individual up front that's like, listen, you guys are the chosen ones, follow what I say and you'll achieve greatness or whatever. Heaven's Gate, thank you very much, Joe. Yep, Heaven's Gate. I mean, we've seen that a number of times. Drink the poison Kool-Aid, and sure, you could say, well, the first person to do it, second person, I can understand. When you're like number 47 and everyone's like, losing their bowels and vomiting up their insides from drinking the poison, you might be like, I don't know if this is going to work. I don't think the starship's going to take me away. But people are that devoted. And you, in a tabletop role-playing setting, you could really turn the volume up on that and make it a real thing. Like, yeah, they're cult members and they're also correct, right? Or they're cult members, but they're also going down a deep, dark path. Like, yeah, Mr. Spencer says, I'm a little impressed but equally disturbed that we're so good at listing suicide cults. Yeah, why do we know this? And uh, why are there enough to make a list? You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah. Omen's like, I'm actually writing up my setting as a cautionary tale. You know what? Yeah, yeah. Now, it's also possible, like, let's take classic Dungeons and Dragons, right? Maybe hags and sphinxes and what are some other mystical nasties? Rakshasa, things like that. Maybe they are the failed devotion to ideals or cults, whereas the player characters have access to the real thing, if that makes sense. Like people who step off the path or haven't completed the path or decided to walk the path given to them and then kind of change their mind halfway through. Maybe that's where those things, those beings, I want to be a soldier on the path of the chosen one. Great, okay. And then at halfway along, they're like, I have to be like a child murderer. I don't want to. Yeah, or you turned me into a child murderer, and I don't want to be one. And then all of a sudden, they become like a ghoul or a troll or a etin or whatever. Like maybe that's the thing that corrupts them, or it could be the seven signs are in the sky. So those who have sworn themselves or walked a certain path. These are the air quotes gifts given to them, or maybe the prophecy is like your sins will be written upon your flesh, and so those the seven deadly sins represent, I don't know, seven deadly creatures or something like you know um almost like being a troll isn't so bad. I don't know. I think it would be kind of itchy, being covered with like bumps filled with pus and stuff. I don't kind of nasty. Zevron says, I was more thinking like Gattaca, you were chosen to do this in life by technology. Ooh, I like that. And we're going to save that, not save it, but we're definitely going to talk about that for Future Friday. But I like where your mind's going, Zev. Like, Gattaca really was a society built around eugenics, like your genetic structure is perfect, therefore you were born to do this thing, so you should. And for everybody else who doesn't have the genetics to be the thing, we're just going to like shuffle you off to like the secondary class citizen. Absolutely. If people were born to be perfect, how easy would it be for society to automatically choose the perfect people to be the leaders in their world, right? We already do that with good-looking people, right? If you're good-looking and combined with a little bit of talent, most people push those individuals to the forefront, as opposed to not being culturally attractive but having lots of talent, right? The unattractive talented person has to be so talented that it so far surpasses their attractiveness, as opposed to the attractive people who could have just little bits of talent, who get far in the world. We already do that in our own world, so why wouldn't that be a thing in, say, uh, you know, role-playing settings, right? Maybe that's why elves, despite being long-lived, are only like they're only first to third level characters. Not because they're lazy, but it's because we've we've put the elves on such a pedestal. We think they're better than they really are, and so therefore they don't try as hard. So they already get what they want anyway. So then they don't have to try as hard. I'm picking with elves, but whatever. I'm also picking with beautiful people. So yeah. Yeah, Omen says, I remember having a long discussion with Fantasy Grounds college members if beauty and charisma should be separate stats. I don't know, not in Dungeons and Dragons. I don't think you can get. I, I think the game doesn't lend itself to the nuance that you're thinking of, but there are games that do them differently. But I don't think specifically Dungeons and Dragons has enough nuance for that. That would be like, I don't know, making swords and arrows more lethal or bloodier or something. The nuance offsets the cinematic nature of the game, so I don't think so. But yes, beauty and charisma are two different things, and many times people who are not beautiful but have lots of charisma tend to be extremely charismatic. We can think of many people who, I mean, I'm not. I guess I'll pick with them. You could take an individual like, say, a Dalai Lama or Gandhi or something. Although I suppose in your you could say that they could have some physical attractiveness to them, but I don't think on the level of their charismatic nature. So yeah, and there are many people who they don't fit the societal norm of being attractive, but their charisma lends them to so many other things. Um, yeah, I see. I'm grognardian enough to remember comeliness there. There's something. Behold, D&D says in older editions, D&D, AD&D first edition was the first one, I believe. Charisma gave you a bonus to your appearance, which was a different score. Comeliness. Yep, yep. Grog, grognardliness. Yep, that is it. Yep, that's it. Yeah, it was called comeliness, which was an appearance because for some reason, I don't know why. We role players like to argue about the idea that someone can be very attractive and someone can be very charismatic, and that we can't combine the two together. I don't know why that. A half orc can easily have an 18 charisma by being very charismatic, and a charismatic person doesn't have to be nice; they can just be very influential. But I don't know, people just. Oh, you guys are silly. All right. Yeah, Zev says, well, this is D&D, a world in which belief equals power. Perhaps a cult leader with hundreds of people willing to commit suicide actually does grant him power and turn him divine. Yeah, yeah, of course. And maybe the path to divinity isn't a straight line, right? So, um, an example would be a soldier on the path of the chosen one may go from, oh, 2 hit point human being to 8 hit point, I don't know, hobgoblin, to 30 hit point troll, to like 80 hit point, I don't know, cyclops. Like there might be a path to, good or bad, cultish path to obtain a certain thing. Um, Joseph Keenan says there are a bunch of cults wanting to bring about the biblical prophecies of ushering in the end of the world. Cthulhu cults, anyone? Yeah. Drinking drinking the poison Kool-Aid might bring about, I don't know, chest bursting tentacles out of the chest and stomachs of your oozes and things like that out of the bodies of sacrificial cult members, which I think would be pretty nasty. Maybe the player characters and the townsfolk gather together in a town square, and the white-robed, bemused-faced, smiling cultists are like, "Oh, we're here to bring you to a new life, a dawning of peace." And then they drink the poison Kool-Aid, and then all of a sudden they're like, uh, uh, yeah, you guys are silly. Seriously, seriously, Omen. Oh, like, yes, I have a race fetish for orc women with their tusks and muscles. I like to rub their tusks. You know, for how long has that been an unspoken thing in Dungeons and Dragons, right? Like, that half orcs came from a certain place of pseudo violence. Yeah, and then we realized, wait a minute, there are actual orc lovers out there. Oh yeah, mm. Yeah, you can dominate me there, big tall orc woman. Hit me in the back of my head and drag me to your cave all you want to, right? Um, but oh man, but yeah, absolutely. You could. I'm with you, Zev, that a bunch of cults could bring about certain things, and Joseph Keenan as well. Like why not have a cult that brings about a certain thing? That could be the origin of any number of things in your tabletop game. Creatures don't have to be born through bloodlines, although that's a thing. It could be through devotion or misdevotion to a certain type of cultish like stature, you know. Yeah, hair forks are products of femdom. Yep, domination. That's what happens. But half the guys are like, no. The other guys are like, oh yeah. Beat me real good. We sure are getting to the end of the hour here. All right. Um, Maybe like Joseph says, leaving the path of the chosen one because of family or friends, like how Luke Skywalker left Dagobah, which what a great way to explain character advancement and leveling, right? You are a third level character. You are destined to become 20th level, but I must leave to do this thing because my friends are in trouble. Oh, okay. And then that's a good, how about that being a great reason for your character being third level, traveling with their friends and family to, because they're devoted to their friends and the path that they're on, to then come back home to quote unquote complete their training to become fourth level and fifth level or something, right? It's the opposite of it is the narrative opposite of going out adventuring to level up. It's the I'm going to adventure because that's what I want to do. I'm going to go back home and then I level up, right? Which it's just a narrative thing, maybe the mentor parent training or something is like you've been around the world, and of course the character goes on their mission and comes back and it's like I'm back to complete my training, and their mentor of course bemused smiles like, yeah, well, you've actually completed your training when you left, so yeah, you don't need me anymore. Let me go fade away and you can become the new master, kind of thing, right? Scott Post says leaving Dagobah cost him a hand. There are Star Wars is very has a very physical description of the rise and fall of mankind's humanity. If we always notice, those who are going down a dark path in their life and their choices become far more mechanical. Many of the bad guys we see, even some of the aliens, will have breathing masks, cybernetic parts, and things of that nature. And I think we were supposed to presume that as when Luke lost his hand, and then in Return of the Jedi, he's in black robes, that we are to assume that he is going to further go towards the dark side because he's wearing black. I understand that we are more sophisticated than that, But in your setting, that may be a thing, right? The person who goes down the dark path gets marked with dark humors. Maybe they start to obtain darker powers. Maybe their bodies start to change. Their eye color changes. They get dark. They are marked with dark tattoos, where they bring about dark things to their front doorstep or something. That that displacer beast that parks itself in your backyard. Yeah, maybe you shouldn't have smacked that kid in the back of the head when they stole that bread, right? You know, so there can be that kind of thing. Uh, Scott, Zevron says, God, I missed this stream. Oh, thank you so much, dear Zev. Although I don't think that's my fault. I am the conduit for the brilliance of other people, so whatever. Zev says, for once, I'd like a chosen one destined to find out how many licks it takes to get to the center of Tootsie Pop. One, a two. Oh man, thanks, Joe. It's the same with glad the stream is back. I think that's just so you guys can exercise, no, exercise the brilliance that is inside of you, because it's probably just been building up, and you're just like, I gotta get this out. Although the way I made that sound made it seem like I'm getting something else evacuating out of my body. Roach says, I always thought orcs were tusky, tieflings are horny. That's so silly. Mr. Spenzar says, what sort of friendship is the true strength? Bullshit are you trying to sell me, sensei? I'm doing 900 push-ups a day. Are you and are you trying to give me that? The secret of the destined ones lies in their friends. I don't have friends. I do push-ups. You know what? Remember, I don't know if you guys remember the old classic Saturday and or Sunday Kung Fu theater, where the young student gets his ass kicked by the bad guy. Young student goes finds a teacher. Teacher starts to train them, and there was one where he had to keep doing push-ups with eggs under his fingertips, and every time he kept putting larger and larger stones on his back, and every time he crushed the eggs he had to eat scrambled eggs, and it was just like, oh my goodness. Yeah, friends don't do friends push-ups. Oh man, thanks, Scott. I wouldn't get up at 4 a.m. if you weren't such a cool guy, creative guru. um I'm still trying to achieve that, guys. So thank you so much. Oh, I miss me being here. I I hell, that's why I get up at what 5:30 in the morning and feed the cats and all that kind of stuff, getting ready for the day. So yeah, that's why I do it. So what the hell ever. So I'm the fact that that the fact that you guys join me makes it better. But I suppose if I were talking to myself, it would be kind of odd. Although maybe the oddity is what makes it cool. All right. Yeah, Joseph's like, yeah, getting up extra early for work. Yeah, well, it's the only time. I don't know when I get off work, but I know when I get up. So it's the only time I could think of. And I was like, there isn't anybody in the States getting up this hella early to do the thing. So, but anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Tomorrow's World Building Wednesday, as you know. To do a little slight self promotion, the next book, Wetlands, is like 99.9% completed. We're just doing some editing, adding some things in there. I can't wait to expose you guys to extracting bot flies from human flesh in a 5th edition setting. But that being said, yeah, there are going to be some other things coming up. As I mentioned off channel, and I will mention it here live, that at least part of the beginning of February, which here in the States is Black History Month, I'm giving you a warning that I will be doing a series about Black history, and it will be anecdotal. It'll be from some of my experiences and breaking down how to add in that kind of controversial racial content into tabletop RPGs. If you, I'm going to course, give you guys plenty of time if you don't want to be part of it. It won't be, I the things that I don't want to have happen, which will happen, it's going to trigger people, so that's going to be a thing. Uh, if you know me and you guys have hung around me, it won't be the kind of thing that will, my purpose isn't to elicit guilt. It's not to teach anyone a lesson because you got to be woke. It's not going to be that kind of thing. It's going to be tabletop RPG content like usual, but it's been on my mind a little bit, and there are some gatekeepers out there, and I feel like the gates should be open. So, and to have it come from somebody like me, I think can only be a positive, even if I'm only a single voice. And I'd love you guys to participate if you can, and give you the opportunity to not do so. And so, and break apart a bunch of little things, things like I mentioned off camera, like Jim Crow laws and the why it is slavery even started in the first place, and some of the nuances that you can throw into certain things. So yeah, that kind of stuff. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for participating. I will jump into the chat for maybe a minute or two. I mean, into Discord for a minute or two. But anyway, have a great day. I will see you tomorrow on World Building Wednesday. All right, see ya.